there are information sheets from Gordon Grenius on the car raffle. And what he's looking for is people to sign up to be on the organizing committee. This year's car raffle. I have the distinct pleasure of turning this meeting over to two of our past presidents who are experts on Robbie Burns days. Past President Jim Cutt and past President Terry Jones.
Robbie Burns, Scotland's national poet, was born on the 25th of January 1759. He died 37 years later, 1796. In the intervening 256 years, Scots have celebrated his birthday wherever they are. The toast to the Lassies. Robbie Burns had a high regard for the ladies, and he put it well. Our nature swears the lovely dears, her noblest work she classes. Her prentice hand she tried on man, and then she made the Lassies. Jane Austen said, "It is the truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife." Burns expressed the same thought, but slightly different. "There's naught but care on every hand, in every hour that passes. What signifies the life of man, and were not for the lassies? For you seduce, you sneered at us, you're naught but senseless asses. The wisest man the world saw, he dearly loved the lassie." But Robert had a romantic view of the ladies. "I see her in the dewy flowers, I see her sweet and fair. I hear her in the tuneful birds, I hear her charm the air. There's not a bonny flower that springs by fountain, shore or green. There's not a bonny bird that sings, but minds me of my Jean. So, go fetch to me a pint of wine and fill it with a silver tassie, that I may drink before I go, a service to my bonny lassie. To the ladies." To the ladies. I'm happy to call on our own Scottish bard, Jim Cutt.
So let me say something quite briefly about the contribution of Robert Burns to the Scottish Enlightenment in the years of intellectual ferment in Scotland. So what was the Scottish Enlightenment? Well, it's the name given to the remarkably concentrated outpouring of intellectual and scientific accomplishments that occurred in the 18th century, beginning with the union of the Scottish Parliament with the Parliament in London. 1707, Scotland was arguably the poorest and the meanest country in Europe. By 1750, the Scots were among the most literate in Europe, with a 75% literacy rate, and by 1815, Scotland was a relatively wealthy, industrialised part of the then richest country in Europe, and a very considerable player, Scotland, intellectual and cultural as well as economic, on the rapidly expanding world stage of British imperial development. Sharing the humanist and rationalist outlook of the European Enlightenment of the same period, the thinkers of the Scottish Enlightenment asserted the fundamental importance of human reason, combined with a rejection of any authority, however well established, that could not be justified by reason. Essentially, this was the philosophy and practice of a reason-based, reflective, meritocratic, civilized liberal democracy. It's instructive that a revolutionary French nationalist like Voltaire said, "It's to Scotland that we look for our idea of civilization." Among the advances of the period, just to introduce Burns to it, were achievements in philosophy, political economy, which is the Scottish integration of economics and political science, engineering, architecture, medicine, geology, archaeology, law, agriculture, chemistry, and not least, literature. And the outstanding and enduring figure in Scottish literature in this period was the poet Robert Burns. His impact in the Enlightenment wasn't merely one of satirical social commentary. It was far richer than that. It was philosophical and cultural. His writing consistently honoured a more open society, the dissolution of power and privilege based on a rigid and mainly hereditary class system, and independence and opportunity for individuals to develop and use their powers of reason and character to the fullest. Intriguingly for Rotarians, Burns was the favourite poet of Rotary's founder, Paul Harris. His own poetry and songs were written consciously in an essentially bilingual and bicultural form, and his first great book of verse, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect, was written in a subtle combination of standard English and Scots, and he pursued this style in all his poems and songs. This helped very significantly to remove the stigma attached to Scots and give it status as a literary language not only in Scotland but throughout the UK and its imperial roots. If he was fiercely egalitarian, and he was, it was equality of opportunity and access that he advocated, along with the argument that success should be honoured and men allowed to enjoy its fruits. Tell that to Barack Obama. The sense of national identity expressed in Burns' work and carried by the legions of Scots who travelled around the world was secure, open, humorous, inclusive and universal. And it stands in sharp contrast to the negative forms of nationalism that we've heard about in Canada, that can be insecure, protectionist, closed, humourless, xenophobic and tribal. Sadly, the Scottish Nationalist Party manifests many of these negative characteristics, as do most nationalist movements around the world. So the poet who was patronisingly styled by the academics and clerics of his day as the heaven-sent ploughman is a man for all seasons and all peoples and all times, and it's entirely appropriate we should honour him today.
Scottish airs. Now, if I can find them, I'll bring them on.
She's the diva of the day, and I'm the dad of the diva of the day. We're going to start with a couple of tunes called The Calliope House and MacArthur's Road. My daughter Kaylee Briscoe on the fiddle. Here we go. So I lifted up my kilt and I gave it a blow. You can't do that in trousers.